building their own like DIY careers, and Etsy can be one piece of that. And in particular, it can be a very fulfilling piece of that. So we find that folks start their Etsy shops, yes, to earn income, but also they talk about wanting a creative outlet, wanting to build independence, wanting to be their own boss. And I feel like those feelings of empowerment are another sort of benefit of starting an independent creative business.
So you mentioned something interesting just now that reminded me. I recently ran across a study that ranked, in terms of life priorities and measures of success for your personal life, for millennials, not to go all buzzword. For millennials, they ended up ranking this freedom to pursue their passions, just a little bit higher than the rest of the demographics in the study. Could you tell me a little bit about what the seller landscape is like from a demographic standpoint?
Definitely. So I think one thing that's interesting is that there are over 900,000 sellers on Etsy right now, and they're in every country, right? So there's no one single Etsy seller. Really, the Etsy sellers match the demographics of the world. But they are primarily women. Most are working from home. It's actually not, though there are plenty of millennials on Etsy, the average age is 41. So actually skews a good bit, more aligns with the general population than what we might assume. I think it's not all sort of like young hipsters that want to go out and sell cool crafts. Right? It's people that are pursuing their passions and building businesses, and that transcends age, I think. But yeah, they're in urban areas, they're in rural areas. We really see that Etsy sellers kind of match the general demographics of society, which I think is pretty cool.
No, I wouldn't have guessed that, by the way, about the 41 being the demographic.
We were talking about that on the way, the drive-in, and it's not, most people on my team are in their 40s, and they certainly are all over the world. Turkey, a lot of my teams are in Europe. There are a lot of people who are in their 40s in Europe, so you just confirmed what I see as a salary as well.
So, Nicole, this goes back a bit to your origin story, but I wanted to know if you could tell us a bit about the weaning process where you eventually sort of left this world of advertising as your main source of income, and how you made that transition. Was there a moment when you realized, like, oh my God, like I can't do this full time and I can actually support myself? Was there some sort of epiphany that you went through in that transition, or was it just very organic?
Yeah, I think a little of both. I think for us, because I work with my husband, we also were working with clients together, and so the initial thing that we did was, because there were so many back-end pieces of our business, printing and design, all the stuff that you don't think about when you're just thinking about selling photographs. So he actually stepped out of the workforce first, while I took on more client work, which was challenging because we have 2 small boys and trying to keep all the balls in the air. But it was really last year, and I had very long-term relationships with my clients, some of whom I've worked for 8 years, 10 years. And so it was really tough for me, not only financially to walk away, but just emotionally. I had connections, and I'm really going to completely walk away from this lucrative, fulfilling, because I loved copywriting and I loved doing what I did. So there was kind of the emotional let go first, am I going to completely shift gears at my age? And then also just the kind of the other side of it, which was the shop was very successful, and we knew how to grow it just from our past, and so it was kind of this interesting place to be where I knew I didn't want to stay in advertising forever. Anybody who's worked in advertising would probably agree with me. But it was just, last year was that year for us where we had gotten so big that we were up until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, weekends, and we knew, and we had enough sales history to make that judgment call. But it was ripped banding off in December. I gave my clients to a fellow copywriter, and we're doing great. So, but it was not like an overnight decision. It was tough to figure out when to make that move. And you can't base it on 1 week of sales. You can't base it on 1 press hit. You have to know where your business is going to be, 2 to 3 years out. And like you said, with multiple platforms, we have other things that we're doing. We have licensing deals. If those licensing deals and other things weren't part of our business, it would be tougher. But we're kind of diversified now. So.
And one thing I would just add to that is I think that's really common with many sellers on Etsy, where where our sellers are very different from your kind of traditional small business. Etsy sellers are bootstrapping their businesses. You know, they're building them on bit by bit. They're reinvesting the profits from their business back into their business. They're not going out and getting big loans or growing super quickly because that's not where their priorities lie. And I think that, you know, I'm a policy director at Etsy, so I think a lot about like public policy things, but I think it is important to sort of educate government and public policy folks about how our micro entrepreneurs is different than sort of the traditional notion of small business.
Do you think that inability to grow at a really rapid rate when when you want to scale your business also helps preserve the authenticity of the voices behind the actual shops? I know that was something we were talking about before we went on. That challenge between balancing, your personality and what you want to convey of you, and then also the need to be a business.
Right. That was one of my biggest mistakes because I come from a marketing and advertising background. When it was clear to me that we were growing and we had an audience and our sales were there, then I suddenly had this oh no moment because I realized that I had started a brand without thinking about the branding aspect of it. I had blog readers who were buying photos, but they knew me and it was just a place to sell the photo. But when I started to bring in other people, I'm like, how are they perceiving me? And I haven't written, my about section was kind of phoned in. And so I sat with my husband and we did this we had taglines, we had your traditional branding, and when I look back at it now, it was ridiculous because I completely lost my artist voice in that exercise. So there was also this balance of small business artist versus being a brand. And I've seen Etsy sellers and I've talked to Etsy sellers who have made similar mistakes. People come to you, especially on Etsy, because you're a person and they want to know you and who you are. They don't want to be spun. They don't want to spin, hype, and market. That doesn't mean that you don't do marketing. It just means that the voice is different. So that was a big lesson. I definitely had a huge mistake.
I think I just add on to that it's not the inability to scale, it's the choice to scale at a certain pace that does preserve that authenticity and that individual voice. But I think it really is sort of it's people starting businesses based on their values and then making business choices based on those values, and that's what differentiates many Etsy sellers, I think, from a traditional business owner.
Well, thank you so much.